In the heart of Africa, there was a peaceful little village called Kibera, where the trees whispered ancient secrets and the rivers sang gentle songs. In this beautiful place lived a bright and kind-hearted 9-year-old girl named Nyasha. She was the sunshine of the village, always smiling, always full of life. Everyone who met her felt the warmth of her soul, but the person who loved her the most was her mother, Mama Zuena. Their bond was like no other, strong, pure, and filled with joy. Every day was an adventure for them. They would cook together, stirring pots of sweet-smelling stew while laughing at silly jokes. They would sing songs that floated through the air like magic and dance barefoot by the river, their laughter blending with the sound of rushing water. It was a life full of simple happiness, a world built on love, trust, and endless dreams, where Nyasha felt safe and protected in her mother's arms. Life in Kibera changed suddenly, like a storm sweeping through a clear sky. One day, Mama Zuena, who was full of life and laughter, fell mysteriously sick. It started with small things, like tiredness and coughing, but soon grew worse, and no healer in the village could save her. People whispered that maybe it was a curse or a trick of evil spirits, but no one knew for sure. Nyasha stayed by her mother's side day and night, holding her hand tightly, praying to the ancestors, begging for her mama to wake up and smile again. But all her prayers fell into a deep, sad silence. Mama Zuena's light slowly faded, and one cold morning, she took her last breath. The whole village mourned her. Women cried openly in the streets, and men bowed their heads low. Nyasha felt her whole world crumble into pieces she could not gather. She was alone, broken, like a bird with no wings. Her father, once strong and full of songs, became a shadow of himself. He wandered through the days, his eyes empty, his voice lost. Nyasha tried to hold on to him, but he was slipping further and further away. And then, just a few months after the grave was closed over Mama Zuena, he made a decision that changed everything. He married again. Her name was Deka. She was not from Kibera, but from another distant village. And though her face was beautiful like carved stone, there was something in her eyes that made the old women whisper and the children hide behind their mothers' skirts. Still, Nyasha's father, blinded by loneliness and sorrow, could not see the warnings. At first, Deka was everything a grieving family could ask for. She spoke sweetly, smiling at Nyasha with perfect white teeth. She braided Nyasha's hair, sang lullabies in a voice like dripping honey, and brought her small gifts. Bracelets made of colourful beads, sweets wrapped in banana leaves. Nyasha, desperate for love, opened her little heart again. She wanted to believe in this new beginning, wanted to trust that maybe, just maybe, happiness could return to their home. She followed Deka around the house, helping with chores, laughing at her stories, trying to be the perfect daughter. For a short time, the sun seemed to peek through the heavy clouds that hung over their lives. But there was a coldness hidden beneath Deka's soft smile, a shadow that Nyasha did not see at first. It was the kind of cold that creeps in quietly, waiting for the right moment to strike. Deka studied Nyasha carefully, watching her every move, learning her weaknesses, her fears. She pretended to be kind when others were looking, offering Nyasha hugs and calling her sweet names in front of the villagers. But when the doors closed and the world turned its back, Deka's eyes turned sharp, her words turned bitter, and her touch turned cruel. Still, in the beginning, it was small things. A slap for spilling water, a harsh word for forgetting a task. Nyasha told herself it was just because Deka was new. Maybe she didn't understand yet how things were done in Kibera. Nyasha's father, busy with work and still drowning in his sorrow, did not notice. Or maybe he chose not to see. Deka was careful, always wrapping her cruelty in smiles whenever he was near. She made sure he believed that everything was perfect. Nyasha tried to speak once, but Deka's warning glance silenced her forever. She learned quickly that in this new world, her tears must be hidden, her pain swallowed. Every night, she would crawl under her thin blanket, hugging herself tightly, pretending she was back in Mama Zuena's arms, safe and loved. But those arms were gone now, and all Nyasha had was the cold, creeping shadow that Deka brought into their once warm and happy home. It didn't take long before Deka's true colours started to show. The sweetness she wore like a mask soon began to crack, and underneath it was something dark, something bitter and full of jealousy. Nyasha, so young and full of hope, noticed the change first. It was in the way Decca's smile tightened whenever Nyasha laughed. It was in the way her hands grew rougher during chores. At first, it was little things that Nyasha tried to ignore. A harsh word here, an angry glare there. But soon, Decca dropped the act completely when no one else was around. Her voice became sharp like thorns, and her touches turned into slaps that stung Nyasha's soft skin. Behind closed doors, Decca became a monster. She beat Nyasha with sticks she kept hidden behind the cooking hut, sticks soaked with anger and cruelty. Sometimes, if Nyasha cried out, Decca would beat her harder, telling her to be silent or worse would come. The beatings left bruises on Nyasha's arms and legs, bruises she had to hide under long dresses and shy smiles. Food, once warm and plenty when Mama Zuena was alive, became a rare gift. Many nights, Decca would send Nyasha to bed with an empty stomach, the smell of food filling the house while she sat outside in the cold, clutching her belly and trying not to cry. The work never ended. From the moment the sun rose until long after it set, Nyasha's small hands were never still. Decca forced her to sweep the yards, fetch heavy buckets of water from the river far away, clean every corner of the house until her knees ached and her fingers bled. If she moved too slowly, if she dared to rest even for a moment, the stick would find her back once more. There were days Nyasha thought she would break, days her body felt too heavy to move, but the memory of her real mother's love gave her just enough strength to keep going. In front of the villagers, though, Decca wore her old mask again. Whenever they visited, Decca would call Nyasha her precious little jewel and pull her into hugs so tight they almost hurt. She would braid Nyasha's hair with colourful beads and hand her small gifts, like sweets wrapped in cloth or pretty shells from the river. To everyone watching, it looked like Decca was the perfect stepmother, caring, loving, even a little strict, but only in the way a mother should be. The villagers smiled approvingly, whispering how lucky Nyasha was to have found such a woman after her mother's death. Nyasha learned to play her part too. She forced smiles when eyes were on her, nodded politely when Decca bragged about how well she was raising her. Inside, though, her heart ached. She wanted to scream the truth, to show the bruises hidden beneath her sleeves, but fear sealed her lips. She knew no one would believe her. Not when Decca was so clever, so careful, not when even her own father, blinded by sadness and work, never once looked deeper. Each day felt like walking on broken glass. Nyasha never knew what would set Decca off. A missed spot while cleaning, a forgotten errand, even a simple look could earn her another beating. She lived in constant fear, her childhood slipping away with every harsh word, every strike of the stick. The home that once echoed with laughter and music had turned into a prison of silence and pain. And still somehow, Nyasha held on to hope. Deep inside her, buried under all the bruises and broken dreams, a small flame burned, the memory of Mama Zuena's love, the promise that someday, somehow, she would be free. The days grew heavier, and the nights became even colder for Nyasha. Her father, once her hero, had turned into a stranger. He buried himself in work, leaving early before the sun rose, and returning long after the stars had taken their place in the sky. His eyes, once filled with laughter, now looked empty, lost somewhere far away. Nyasha would run to greet him sometimes, hoping he would see her, hoping he would notice the bruises, the sadness, but he never did. He would only pat her head distractedly or mumble a few tired words before disappearing into his room. She was alone, trapped in a house that had forgotten how to love. The walls felt too close, and Decca's footsteps too loud. Every day was a new wound. Every night, a new fear. Nyasha had no one left to turn to. She knew if she told anyone, Decca would punish her even worse, and no one would believe her anyway. The mask Decca wore was too perfect, too convincing. The pain had no voice. It lived quietly inside Nyasha, growing heavier with each passing day. But there was one place where her heart could breathe. One place that still remembered the old magic, the old love, the sacred baobab tree that stood at the edge of the village. The elders always said the baobab was where the ancestors lived, their spirits swirling through its thick roots and whispering in its heavy branches. It was a place of prayers, a place where broken hearts could be heard by those who had passed on. One night, when the moon hung low and silver in the sky, Nyasha couldn't bear the weight inside her any longer. Carefully, she tiptoed past Decca's room, careful not to make a sound. Her bare feet touched the cold earth as she slipped out of the house and ran quietly through the sleeping village. The night air kissed her bruised skin, and the grass brushed against her legs as she hurried toward the old baobab tree. When she reached it, she collapsed at its giant roots, the bark rough but somehow comforting against her back. The tree stood tall and silent, like a giant watching over her. Nyasha hugged her knees tightly and let the tears fall freely at last. The cries she had kept locked inside spilling out into the night. She wept for her mother, for the life they had lost, for the love she missed so much it ached inside her chest. Through choked sobs, she whispered her prayers into the darkness, her voice shaking but full of desperate hope. She called out to Mama Zuena, begging her to hear. "Mama," she cried, her small voice breaking the stillness. "I miss you. I need you. Please come back. Please don't leave me here alone." The baobab tree stood still, its heavy branches swaying gently in the night breeze, as if listening. The stars above blinked down, and the wind seemed to carry her words far, far away into the places where only the ancestors could go. Nyasha stayed there for a long time, pouring her heart into the earth, telling the tree everything she could never say to anyone else. Eventually, her tears dried on her cheeks, and exhaustion pulled at her tiny body. She curled up at the base of the baobab, feeling safer there under its ancient arms than she ever did at home. Before her eyes closed, she made one last wish, whispered so softly, only the stars and the tree could hear. "Please, Mama, find me." That night, as Nyasha drifted into a restless sleep under the baobab tree, something in the air shifted. A breeze stirred that did not come from the earth. A whisper moved through the leaves that spoke a language older than time. The ancestors had heard her, and somewhere beyond the world, Nyasha knew something powerful was beginning to wake. The nights after Nyasha's prayers at the baobab tree felt different. The winds whispered more clearly, the stars seemed to blink more brightly, and deep inside her heart, something stirred. Still, the pain at home didn't stop. Decca's cruelty continued, and Nyasha's small body grew weaker under the heavy work and beating. But a tiny flame had started to burn inside her, a flame fed by the hope that somehow someone had heard her cries. Then, one night, something extraordinary happened. The moon that rose over Kibera was not its usual soft silver. It was blood red, hanging low and heavy in the sky like a warning or a promise. The whole village fell silent under its strange light. Even the animals hid in their shelters, and the old people muttered prayers under their breath. Nyasha felt the pull of that red moon deep in her bones. That night, more than any night before, she needed to be close to the baobab tree. So once again, when Decca's house was swallowed in darkness, she crept outside and ran barefoot through the sleeping village to her sacred place. She curled up under the baobab, her eyes lifted to the red sky, and before long, she drifted into a deep, heavy sleep. But this sleep was different. It wasn't filled with nightmares of Decca's angry face or memories of Mama Zuena's soft hand. It was thick, powerful, and bright, pulling Nyasha into another world. In her dream, she stood in a wide, open field where golden grass swayed without wind. The sky above her was not red, but filled with a warm, glowing light. And there, walking toward her, was Mama Zuena. She was wrapped in golden robes that shimmered like the sun, her face still and beautiful, but her eyes held a deep sadness. Nyasha's heart leapt, and tears sprang to her eyes as she ran toward her mother, arms open wide. Mama Zuena knelt down and gathered her into a warm, safe hug, the kind Nyasha had missed so deeply. She smelled of wildflowers and the river, of everything Nyasha had lost. Mama Zuena pulled back slightly, cupping Nyasha's face in her hands. Her voice was soft but strong as she spoke. "Be strong, child. The ancestors have heard you. I have heard you. I will return." Nyasha clung to every word, letting them soak into her broken heart. She didn't want to let go. She wanted to stay there forever, wrapped in her mother's arms, away from all the pain and loneliness. But Mama Zuena smiled sadly and shook her head. She wiped away Nyasha's tears with a touch as light as feathers. "It is not yet time," she whispered, "but soon, my precious one, soon." Before Nyasha could speak again, the dream began to slip away, like sand running through her fingers. Mama Zuena faded into the golden light, and the glowing field blurred into darkness. Nyasha tried to hold on to the dream, reaching out with small hands, but she woke suddenly under the baobab tree, the early morning light just beginning to color the sky. For a moment, Nyasha sat still, not sure if it had all been real, or just a dream born of her tired, broken heart. But then she felt it, a warmth inside her, stronger than anything Decca could beat out of her. Her mother had spoken to her. The ancestors had heard her. She was not alone anymore. Hope filled her chest, fierce and bright. Nyasha stood up, wiping the dirt and tears from her face. She looked up at the baobab tree, its heavy branches sheltering her like a protective giant, and she made a silent promise. No matter how hard things got, no matter how cruel Decca became, she would hold on. She would be strong, because somewhere, somehow, her real mother was coming back for her, and this time, nothing would stop them from being together again. The days that followed Nyasha's dream were some of the hardest she had ever known. Decca's cruelty only grew sharper, more violent, as if sensing that Nyasha was holding on to something powerful inside her. Every small mistake became an excuse for another beating, another cruel word whispered into her ear when no one else could hear. But through all the pain, Nyasha clung tightly to her mother's promise. She knew she had to be strong, no matter what. Then came the day that everything changed, the day the pain became too much for even Nyasha's brave heart to hide. It started like any other day, with Decca barking orders, and Nyasha running around trying to please her. The sun was scorching, and Nyasha, tired and hungry, moved slower than usual. Her small arms ached from carrying heavy loads, and her bare feet were cut and bruised from the rough ground. While fetching water from the river, Nyasha struggled with a large clay jug, much too big for her tiny frame. She stumbled as she reached the house, her weak arms shaking from exhaustion. The jug slipped from her fingers, crashed onto the stone doorstep, and shattered into 1,000 sharp pieces. The sound echoed through the village like a gunshot. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, Decca's furious voice split the air. She stormed out of the house, her face twisted with rage, her hands clenched into fists. Without thinking, she grabbed Nyasha by the arm and yanked her into the street. Nyasha cried out in pain, but Decca didn't care. She dragged the girl through the dusty village paths, straight toward the main square, where the villagers usually gathered for celebrations and important meetings. People looked up from their work as Decca marched Nyasha into the center of the square. They watched with wide eyes, unsure of what was happening. Some whispered, some gasped, but no one stepped forward. Decca, breathing heavily, shoved Nyasha onto the ground. Dust filled Nyasha's mouth and eyes, and she coughed weakly as Decca towered over her. "You see this child?" Decca shouted for everyone to hear. "Ungrateful! Useless! After all I've done for her!" Before anyone could react, Decca raised the thick stick she always kept nearby and brought it down hard across Nyasha's back. The crowd winced, some looking away, but no one dared move. Again and again, the stick found Nyasha's fragile body. Each blow stole the breath from her lungs, each strike leaving a burning line of pain across her skin. She tried to crawl away, but her body refused to move, her vision blurred with tears and dust. Finally, when Decca grew tired of beating her, she threw the stick down and walked away, leaving Nyasha crumpled in the dirt, broken and bleeding. No one helped her. Fear and silence ruled the village that day. With the last bit of strength she had, Nyasha pulled herself toward the baobab tree. Every inch of movement was pure agony, but something deep inside her called her there, a force stronger than pain. She reached the tree's roots and collapsed, her body barely breathing, her heart beating weakly under layers of bruises. As she lay there, half conscious, the tree's massive trunk seemed to hum, and the wind whispered through its branches, as if the ancestors themselves were weeping for her. Nyasha's broken body rested against the sacred roots, and somewhere beyond pain, she clung to the faint light of her mother's promise, praying it would find her soon, before it was too late. That night, the village of Kybera was restless. The air grew heavy and strained. Without warning, strong winds whipped through the houses, slamming doors and windows. Animals cried out in fear, goats kicked against their pens, dogs barked wildly, chickens scattered in panic. Trees shook as if trying to uproot themselves from the earth. It was no normal storm. At the sacred baobab tree, something powerful began to stir. Nyasha, lying broken and bleeding under its roots, could barely open her eyes, but she felt it, a deep, rising energy surrounding her. The ground trembled under her weak body, dust spun in the air. The villagers, now fully awake, stepped outside, staring in terror at the unnatural storm. From the heart of the baobab tree, a golden light burst forth, blinding and pure. Mama Zuena's spirit rose from the glowing roots, wrapped in shimmering golden robes. Her face was beautiful and sad, her eyes burning with fierce love. Behind her, other spirits rose too, the ancestors of Kybera, swirling in silver mist, riding the angry winds. The villagers gasped and stumbled back. Some fell to their knees. Others cried out in fear. They had never seen anything like this. The ancestors had awakened. The winds screamed louder, shaking the very bones of the village, rattling the rooftops and snapping branches from trees. The air smelled of earth, fire, and something ancient. Mama Zuena hovered above Nyasha, her glowing form radiant against the dark, stormy sky. She reached her hand toward her daughter, and the winds answered her call, roaring even stronger, circling faster. It was a night of reckoning, and every heart in the village knew it. Inside their huts, villagers prayed, wept, and watched as the spirit storm took over Kybera. Justice had come riding the winds, led by a mother's unbreakable love. Nothing would stop her now. As the golden storm raged through Kybera, Mama Zuena's spirit moved with powerful purpose. She glided straight toward Deka's hut, her glowing form surrounded by the furious spirits of the ancestors. The winds roared louder, pushing against doors and windows. Inside her hut, Deka cowered, trembling with fear. She could feel the ground shake under her feet, the air growing colder and heavier with every second. She knew something was coming for her. Suddenly, the door to her hut blew open with a deafening crash. Mama Zuena's spirit entered like a blast of pure light. Deka tried to scream, tried to run, but she was frozen in place. The golden light wrapped around her, lifting her into the air like a leaf caught in a storm. She kicked and screamed, but there was no escape. Before the whole village, who had gathered in terror outside, Deka was held high above the ground. Her beautiful face, the one that had fooled so many, began to change. Slowly, before everyone's eyes, her beauty melted away. Her smooth skin wrinkled and cracked, her hair turned coarse and grey, and her bright eyes dulled into cold, empty pits. She shrieked as her true, ugly self was revealed to everyone she had deceived. The villagers gasped, horrified. They had been blind for so long, tricked by Deka's sweet smiles and fake kindness. Now, the truth could not be hidden. Deka's screams filled the night, but the winds around her howled louder, forcing her to speak. In a broken, choking voice, she began to confess everything. She confessed to beating Nyasha, to starving her, to forcing her to work until her little hands bled. She confessed how she had lied to the villagers, pretending to be a loving stepmother while hurting Nyasha behind closed doors. Every cruel word, every cruel act spilled out of her mouth, dragged from her by the spirit's powerful will. The villagers listened in shock and anger. Some wept for Nyasha, realizing how blind they had been. Some clenched their fists, furious at Deka's cruelty, but no one moved. They stood silently, as the truth filled the air like smoke. When Deka's confession ended, Mama Zuena's spirit floated down, her face grave and calm. The village elders stepped forward, their faces hard with anger and shame. They raised their staffs high into the air, calling upon the ancient laws of the ancestors. By the old traditions, such evil could not be allowed to stay. The elders declared Deka cursed, cursed to wander forever, banished from the village, never to know peace again. They pointed toward the dark forests beyond the hills, a place feared by all, where no soul who entered ever returned. Still held by the supernatural winds, Deka was hurled toward the forest's edge. She landed hard on the ground, scrambling to her feet. But when she looked back at the village, the spirits roared, and a wall of wind rose between her and Kybera, cutting her off forever. Crying and shrieking, Deka disappeared into the dark trees, swallowed by the shadows. The storm slowly began to calm. The wind softened into whispers. The animals quieted. The villagers, stunned and silent, turned their eyes back to the baobab tree where Nyasha still lay. The golden light of Mama Zuwena glowed faintly around her, protecting her fragile body. Justice had been served. The village had seen the truth, and Kybera would never forget the night when a mother's love returned with the power of the ancestors to save her child. As the winds died down and the village of Kybera grew quiet, Mama Zuwena's spirit floated down to where Nyasha lay under the baobab tree. Her golden light glowed gently, not fierce anymore, but full of warmth and peace. She moved closer to her daughter, kneeling beside her broken body. With a soft, loving hand, Mama Zuwena touched Nyasha's bruised face. The moment her fingers brushed Nyasha's skin, the deep purple bruises began to fade. She moved her hands down, touching every wounded part of Nyasha's small body. Cuts closed, swollen skin smoothed out, bones that had been cracked by Decca's cruelty mended as if they had never been broken. Every touch brought healing, and the pain slowly left Nyasha's body. The villagers stood silently, their eyes wide with awe and tears running down their faces. They had never seen anything like this. They had never seen love so powerful that it could heal wounds so deep. Mama Zuwena smiled as she worked, humming a soft tune that once lulled Nyasha to sleep when she was a baby. Her touch was light, but her love was fierce, wrapping Nyasha like a warm blanket. Slowly, Nyasha's eyes fluttered open. She blinked up at the glowing figure of her mother, unsure if she was dreaming. She tried to speak, but Mama Zuwena placed a gentle finger on her lips, signaling her to rest. No words were needed. Nyasha understood everything through the deep connection of their hearts. She was safe now. She was loved. From the folds of her glowing robes, Mama Zuwena pulled out a small, shining amulet. It was shaped like a sun with a bright red stone in the center that seemed to beat with life. Mama Zuwena placed it around Nyasha's neck. As soon as it touched her skin, Nyasha felt a warm, powerful energy flow into her. It filled her with strength, protection, and a peace she hadn't known in a long time. The amulet was a gift, a promise that Nyasha would never be alone again. The ancestors would always watch over her, just like her mother had promised. Mama Zuwena leaned down and kissed Nyasha's forehead one last time. Her touch was full of love, of goodbye, but also of hope. Slowly, Mama Zuwena began to rise, her golden form lifting toward the sky. The ancestors followed her, their silver mist swirling upward into the stars. Nyasha sat up carefully, feeling stronger than she had in months. She clutched the amulet, its warmth filling her chest. Though her mother's spirit faded into the night sky, Nyasha could still feel her presence all around, in the air, in the tree, in her own heart. The villagers bowed their heads in respect. They had witnessed a miracle. They had seen the true power of a mother's love. Nyasha, once broken and beaten, was now whole, shining with the spirit of her mother and the blessing of the ancestors. Years passed in Kybera, and the memory of that powerful night remained fresh in every villager's heart. Nyasha grew up surrounded by the love and respect of everyone who had once been blind to her pain. She was no longer the broken, frightened child she had once been. Instead, she grew into a strong, wise, and kind young woman, carrying the light her mother had left inside her. The amulet around her neck still shone faintly, a reminder that she was never truly alone. Nyasha chose to dedicate her life to healing others. She became the village's healer, but not just for the sick and wounded. She opened her arms and heart, especially for mistreated and forgotten children. Any child who had been hurt, abandoned, or left voiceless found a home in Nyasha's care. She made sure no one would suffer as she had. Her small home became a sanctuary where laughter replaced cries, where kindness erased fear. The villagers often said that Nyasha had her mother's hands, hands that healed, hands that comforted. They saw Mama Zuwena's spirit live on in every act of kindness Nyasha showed. She taught the children of Kybera to be strong, to believe in themselves, and to trust that even in their darkest times, they were never truly alone. She taught them that the ancestors were always listening, just as they had listened to her when she was only a broken little girl praying under the baobab tree. The baobab tree itself became a sacred place for the village. No one ever forgot how it had protected Nyasha, how it had answered her cries for help. Parents brought their children to the tree to tell stories of bravery, of love that conquered even death. It stood tall and proud at the heart of Kibera, a living symbol that every prayer spoken from a true heart would be heard. As Nyasha stood often under its shade, watching the children play and laugh freely, she smiled, knowing her mother's spirit was there too, smiling down with pride. Mama Zuwena's love had not only saved her but had changed an entire village forever, and Nyasha, strong and unbreakable, made sure that legacy would never fade.